If you've ever felt like your body just won't cooperate, no matter how clean you eat, how much you exercise, or how hard you try to do everything right, this episode is for you. When your thyroid's not functioning properly, weight loss isn't just difficult, it can feel impossible. And no, you're not imagining it. It really can be harder to lose weight with a missing or underactive thyroid, even when you're on thyroid medication. So today we're going to tackle what is one of the most common and most frustrating issues for thyroid thrivers, why traditional weight loss methods often don't work for us. And don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to also talk about what does work when it comes to losing weight with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. To help us break it all down, I've invited my friend and fellow thyroid thriver, Angela Brown, back to the show. It's always a fun and enlightening and empowering conversation with Angela, so stick around because you won't want to miss this episode. Hello, Thyroid Thrivers, and welcome back to another episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast, with bi-weekly episodes dedicated to helping you eat well, live well, and feel well. I'm Jenny Mahar, a functional medicine health coach, cordon bleu chef, and your thyroid health and cooking coach. So if you're ready to get inspired, informed, and empowered with thyroid-friendly food and lifestyle topics, expert interviews, and tales from the healing journey, you're in the right place, friend. Let's dig in. All right, welcome back to Thyroid Healthy Bites. Angela Brown, I'm so excited to have you back on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me again. I love being on here with you.
Oh, it's always like just an excuse, I feel like, for us to see each other and hang out. We
Exactly.
should
We
probably
need to
just
bond.
hang out like outside the podcast sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is, always such a hot topic, as you know, and you know, for me on my own personal journey, it's been always, something I've had to work on. I think even pre-hypothyroidism, just my physical makeup. And now that I'm 48, also getting into perimenopause, that doesn't make things any easier.
Easier. Right. And we're the same age, so I can totally vouch for that.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Um, but I know, there's a lot of listeners who are excited to hear everything you have to share with us today about this topic, and I'm excited to get into it. Before we do, I just wanted to let the listeners know a little bit more about you. Angela Brown is a holistic health coach, licensed physical therapist, personal trainer, and board certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She's also the creator of the Sexy Thyroid Solution, a program she developed after overcoming her own struggles with hypothyroidism, which she was diagnosed with at age 22, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Angela brings just a lot of deep knowledge. You have a lot of advanced testing insights, which is always very interesting and helpful to hear about. And you just always bring this refreshing dose of real talk to the conversation. And, like so many other thyroid advocates, right? You've been through this and you just get it. So for the listeners, whether you've hit a plateau, whether you feel stuck in survival mode, or maybe you're just looking to make smarter, more sustainable progress towards your, weight loss goals, this conversation is going to, I think, help you feel just seen and supported and more empowered on your journey. So let's go ahead and get into it. Angela, as I mentioned, like so many other thyroid advocates, I know your personal healing journey with hypothyroidism was a lot of the spark behind your work and what you do as a thyroid coach. So maybe we can start there with and maybe, since you've been on the show before, maybe you could tell us about maybe how your weight struggles kind of played into that experience and what finally helped you break through.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I 1000% had weight struggles. I won't deny that. And like you said, I got diagnosed at 22. And it was a really, really long journey. The first, I'd say 15 years or so, it was an absolute roller coaster. And every time I felt like, okay, maybe I'm actually starting to lose weight, feeling a little bit better, it would just go completely backwards. And every time I went backwards, it was like way backwards. And I would just keep, put the weight back on and put even more. And so at one point, I think I was like 35, 40 pounds over what I normally am. Um, And kind of like you said, I got diagnosed at 22. I'm pretty dang positive that I had it long before that. I was already struggling in high school. I was putting a lot of weight on, and I played a lot of sports, and all my doctors were just like, it's just because you're an athlete. And I was like, not really sure that that's the case. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And by the time I was in college, it was even worse after that. And finally got the diagnosis. And so I thought, great, I'm diagnosed. Great, give me this thyroid medication. I'm going to lose the weight just like that. And it did not do that. In fact, it actually did the exact opposite. The more that they kept upping my dose and changing my medicine and upping my dose again, I actually was gaining more weight and gaining more weight.
Hmm.
Everything just kept getting worse. And that's when, again, this battle was up and down for 15 years. I decided, there has to be something more than this. They can't just be a exercise, more, eat less thing. I was told by every single doctor that I went to. I'm like, there has to be more to it than this. It can't just be cut your calories some more, because that was not working. And so that's what actually made me start doing a deeper dive. And I found functional medicine, started really studying that. And I was like, wow, there's a lot to this than just calories in, calories out. That was not working for me. In fact, it just kept getting worse. Every time I would, go to the doctor, they'd say cut more calories. I was to the point at one point, embarrassingly, I was eating 900 calories a day. And the doctor was like, that's still too much. Yeah,
Kidding me.
exactly. Yeah. And it was like that. I can't survive like this. I cannot keep surviving like this.
Oh my
And of course,
gosh.
then I had all the other symptoms that goes, with not eating enough calories and then trying to lose weight. It was just not working. And so when I got into functional medicine, I started noticing like, okay, there's other things here that actually contribute to why I am actually not able to lose weight, why the thyroid medicine that I'm taking is doing absolutely nothing for my weight loss. And that's really why I was like, okay, there's more to it. I need to do a deeper dive. I had to do other things and look at other, areas of the systems in the body and things like that. Because the thing that really was kind of eye-opening for me was when I started doing a lot more research and reading on this of how much your thyroid's connected to literally every system in the body. Every
Mhm.
single system. And so just cutting my calories, that's why it was not working. Because like I did look at any of the other systems in my body and I was just drastically cutting my calories. I was eating zero carbs. I was doing all these things that, again, every doctor kept telling me to do, and that did not work. And
Mhm.
that was those were big learning lessons for me. I mean, truth be told, when I go think about it and look back, I'm like, okay, you know what? I actually learned a lot from it though. I wouldn't change anything. I learned so much from it and it got me to where I am now. I lost all that weight. I'm able to help women do it now too. And it's like, it was just such a like breath of fresh air knowing like there's other things you can do that actually help you with this. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it's not so simple. It's not a cookie cutter approach of cut calories and you're going to lose your weight. That it just doesn't, especially when you have thyroid stuff and hormone stuff, it just doesn't work like that. I wish it was so easy, but in my experience and all the years I've been doing this, I just don't see it as simple as that, in other words.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like so many people are not eating enough
Mhm.
because we get that messaging so much.
Correct.
It's
Diet message.
typical,
It's
right?
always
The
a
whole,
diet message. Hmm.
yeah, diet culture and just the whole calories in, calories out. I mean, that is part of the equation, but it really doesn't tell the whole story with hypothyroidism. There is a lot more to it. And 900 calories a day. Like, how is anyone supposed to
I, yeah.
maintain that, have that kind of self-control? You must have been so hungry.
I was hungry all the time. I was cranky all the time because I
Yeah,
was getting no calories in, and zero carbs. It was
right.
like from protein and fat. I mean,
And
that's
then
all I was eating.
I'm thinking, how's your brain supposed to work?
Right.
So
Hmm.
many people dealing with brain fog,
Yep.
related to hypothyroidism. How are you supposed to be thinking clearly?
Right.
Sleep. I know when I've done like calorie restriction in the past, it really affects my sleep.
Totally messes the sleep up. Yeah. I was not sleeping. No, I
Yeah,
was getting very little sleep. It was a big snowball.
yeah,
It
yeah.
just was this big snowball that just kept getting worse. And again, it's just because that's, back then too, especially, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I'm being told by every single doctor. I'm like, okay, well then I guess that's what I'm supposed to be doing because everyone keeps telling me that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like, this is not working. And so coming out of obviously eating 900 calories, I couldn't just go straight to eating a ton. I had to like baby step it and kind of almost like we call it like a reverse diet where I had to like increase my calories slowly.
Mhm.
And I started losing weight when I increased my calories. I was like, oh, so that's how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
see that a lot, and I've experienced that myself too.
Yeah.
Our bodies need calories. We
Yeah.
need to eat. We need to
Yeah.
be fueling our bodies. And
Right.
okay, so I'm excited to get into, all of this. We already touched on some of the most common mistakes and excited again to get into just what we can do differently. But I wanted to ask you because your program is called the Sexy Thyroid Solution. And, I've always loved that because I feel like it speaks to how disconnected women feel from their bodies when they're dealing with thyroid issues.
Yep. 100%.
But I just wanted to ask you about that. Like, I'd love to hear more in your words about what the Sexy Thyroid Solution means to you and your work with
Yeah.
clients. Like, what does feeling sexy again have to do with weight loss and
Yeah.
healing?
So I love this question too. So one of the biggest reasons that I used that I created that name, I started thinking about all the things when I was going through all my thyroid stuff and all the things that what I wish I had been told instead, but also the kind of support that I would have wanted, and the kind of help that I would have wanted, and those type of things. But the big thing was the feeling of how I wanted to feel, not just feel, have my energy back and lose the weight and whatever. That was fantastic. I obviously wanted all that. I wanted my hair to stop falling out, and I wanted to sleep better and not have anxiety and all these things. Those were important, but it was like, how did I really want to feel? I wanted to feel good about my body. I wanted to look in the mirror and not like beat myself up. I wanted to feel sexy again. I wanted to feel, you know, that I loved my body, and it didn't matter. The big thing that I, as far as, creating that name too, was it's, I didn't want it to feel like, oh, I have to like be a certain number on the scale or be certain, body fat. That's why I didn't want to do something like that. I'm like, I wanted the name to be something that really tells women like, just because you have thyroid stuff does not
Mhm.
mean that you are not attractive or not sexy or not. And that was the big thing for me, was I was really, really down and out, really depressed, did not like the way that I looked, very, very down on myself. And I'm like, that's not who I am. I'm like, I kept thinking like, that's not who I am. I am not like this. But I was going down a rabbit hole because I was just, things were just falling apart in my body. And so yeah, that was the big reason why I created that and used that name, because I'm like, you should feel like that. You should always feel like that. You should never have to feel like you have to deprive yourself and do all these crazy, crazy things, and not have support to to feel good again. Like, you shouldn't have to do those things. So that was,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the big reason.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked. I love that, thinking about how do I want to feel?
Mhm.
How do
Yeah.
I want to feel? And that's such when I mean, you know this too as a coach, like how do we help people get to where they want to go if they don't know how they want to feel, if they don't have that highest vision of what am I doing when I'm at my healthiest? How do I feel in my body? How do I feel about myself?
Right. Right.
And that mindset piece, I think is always a great place to start
It
because
really is.
if
And
that's
I
not,
needed a lot of work on that. That's exactly why I used
Mhm.
the name, because I'm like, I needed so much work with that. That was a big
Yeah.
thing for me. Hmm.
Yeah, if those things aren't lined up, it's really hard to
Right.
get where we want to go. And with weight loss, because of so much of our baked in ideas about,
Right.
you know, needing to be
Oh,
smaller as
right.
women and all the, all
Yeah.
this stuff,
And the
right?
number on the scale and what size of jeans you're
Yeah.
wearing. And that's exactly why I like, exactly the name too, of how you feel. I'm like, not, it's not about how you look in the mirror. Yes, is that important? Sure it is. The number on the scale, it's not about those things and the size of jeans that you're wearing. I want you, it's how you feel. I want you to feel good about your body. I want you to
Yeah.
feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. And when you have thyroid and hormone stuff, sometimes it's very hard to feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and we really are stuck in this whole, numbers game, I feel like. And I'm like, it's not about the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's about how you feel about yourself and in your own body. And the mind is a huge piece of that. I had to do a ton of work on that. I will not deny that. I had to
Yeah.
do a lot of work on that because I came from obviously background of being a physical therapist, then I was a personal trainer, and I'm around all these amazing, beautiful, fit women, and I am packing weight on. At that time, I was not in functional medicine yet, and I'm packing weight on, and I'm dieting and exercising and doing more dieting, doing more exercising, and nothing's working. And I really got stuck in my mind, like, okay, well, then I must just be like a loser because I can't, nothing's working, and I'm not doing this. And then I thought, that
Right.
is not fair to yourself. Like, that's not how this works. No, you have
Yeah.
to really work on. And when I made these massive mindset set shifts, those were the big pieces for me. Like it was huge for me. I'm like
Mhm.
I would have never gotten where I am had I not really done that piece, which is why I have a whole module in my program on mindset. And a lot of people ask me like you have a whole thing on mindset, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason. I'm like,
Yeah.
because I know how this works. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
foundational. And yeah, that resonates with me too. It made me think about when I'm not just eating well. Like I feel like I am almost always eating well, right? Like, and you too, like the food thing, it's like part of my everyday.
Yeah.
But when I'm really good about like getting my strength training workouts in, I just feel better. I feel sexier.
Yeah.
Do I weigh any different?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of the times, no. And
No.
sometimes, if I'm really good about doing strength training, even though it's like my clothes are fitting better and I feel stronger and I just feel sexier,
Yeah.
sometimes the scale will actually go
Goes
up.
up. Yeah. Mine does. Yeah.
So it's,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge piece. And again, it's like an area that I mean, I really had to work on. And I always talk to my clients about that. I'm like, it's very, very important that you really have to set yourself up here to do some mindset work around this because especially when you're coming from that diet culture and got to be a certain number and this and that. I'm like, it's really, really challenging when you're kind of stuck in that and being a certain number or whatever that looks like. I'm like, no, we gotta do some other work around that because it's a
yeah.
huge piece.
And there are other metrics too people can use.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Other metrics, totally.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people don't think about either. I'm like, you do know that, right? Like there's other things that we can look at here. But yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of those. What are some of the ones that come to your mind?
So some of the well, one thing that I always like to look at, that people always kind of seem to forget too, like looking at even at blood work. I'm like, if your blood work is a total train wreck and you're like, yeah, I lost weight, I'm down to 120 pounds, but I'm like, your blood work's a train wreck. I'm like, we need to work on your blood work, not that number on the scale. Because I've had a lot of people that come to me and they're like, well, my weight's, I keep losing weight. It's really good. I'm not really worried about my weight. And then I get their testing back and I'm like, whoa, that's not good. So yeah, I'm like, let's look at like even your blood work. I'm like, what's your, thyroid panel, for example, what's your TSH doing? And or your
Mhm.
thyroid antibodies, doing anything? Do you have thyroid antibodies? Things like that. I'm like, that's kind of actually an important piece to
Mhm.
really look at. Now, granted, those numbers again can look completely normal and someone still have a ton of symptoms, but I'm like, it can also look really, really bad. And someone's like, great, I fit into my size 6 jeans. And I'm like, but your blood work looks really bad. So let's kind of work on that, or you're testing, whatever that looks like. So like, I do like to look at that. Um, some of the other things that like I actually have people, there's like questionnaires that I have my clients even do, um, that are, it's kind of, it's like a feelings, it's almost like a feelings questionnaire. Um, and it goes into like it, and I use numbers. And so it's like a 1 to 10 scale
Okay.
on, how do you feel about your body? And how do you feel when you look into the mirror? And, how do you feel about food? And it's different things like that. And then I have them recheck it in a couple months, and it's amazing. A lot of them are like, "Whoa, I didn't realize how bad I like talked about myself or felt about myself or whatever." And they
Mhm.
note and they start, look again using numbers, shifting it and things like that. I have them, look at things like that. But I'm like, the number on the scale that can fluctuate so much. Even these
Mhm.
body fat calipers and stuff like that, I'm like, those can fluctuate, for a woman's. cycle in her period and if she's retaining water and things like
Yeah.
that. Sometimes though, I think those can be, even tricky. The scale I definitely am not a fan of, because that just can be, like you said, you can do an extra workout or do a harder workout and I can put, 2, 3 pounds on from doing that. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, but those are kind of like biggies that I use. And then, even using, like Aura Ring. I have an Aura
Mhm.
Ring on. I'll have sometimes people looking at, data on an Aura Ring, or there's other, gadgets like that too. But like, are you getting enough sleep? What's your sleep score? Let's look at your sleep. Is that getting any better? Your activity level, like, how many minutes of activity are you getting in? So I have them kind of monitor things like that too. But I'm like, the number on the scale, though, I'm like, that's not one that I'm a big proponent of that.
Mhm.
Because it just can change so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we laid a lot of good, mindset foundation before we kind of like sink our teeth into this. Um, as far as just, maybe don't hyperfixate on the
Yeah.
number so much. Think more about how you feel. Think
Yeah.
about how you want to feel. And are
Yeah.
you moving towards that?
Yeah.
Which I think is just great advice.
Yeah.
Um, but now that we've kind of, I think established some of those important mindset markers, let's dive in. Like, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see thyroid patients making when weight loss is a goal?
Yeah. The big one, like we talked a little bit about this, is, cutting calories. I just see so many people and we're, drastic, like I was the 900 nonsense. I see a lot of people just drastically cutting calories. Now, the thing to remember too is that everyone's different with where they need their so-called calories. I don't really have a lot of people count calories, because they're, different foods have different, way the calories are burned and things like that. So those can be different. But generally, everyone's different with where they need to be. So, making a cookie cutter statement and saying like, yeah, if you need to lose weight, a woman should be at 1,200 calories. Well, no, it depends on how much she weighs and what her exercise, tolerance is and, what type of food she's eating and, activity level and all that. So, where you should be for that's person dependent. But if you're really cutting your calories a lot, I'm like, that's a huge one. Because what you're doing is you're setting your metabolic rate low,
Mhm.
which is why I kept putting weight on. My metabolic rate kept getting lower and lower and lower, which is, where I'm burning lower because my calories were so low. So then
Mhm.
anytime I was eating 9,000 calories, anytime I would eat like even 1,000 calories, I'd put weight on. Maybe
Mhm.
1,100 calories, I put weight on. So I had to be like really strategic getting out of that. The other thing too that is just killing yourself with cardio, just these long duration cardio sessions, crazy, crazy intense workouts. It's really challenging for thyroid people to do that. Which again, something that I was doing because I was told you got to exercise more. I got to the point where I was doing 2 a days, 7 days a week. 2 hours of workouts a day. That was insane. I definitely don't do that now. Um, but just be very mindful of, how you're working out, the intensity level. Is it too long for you? Um, you know, Weight training is always going to be my go-to. That's safe for thyroid people. I think that's always a great idea. The other thing is, this is a huge one, is not eating any carbohydrates. Everyone thinks that we need to do low carbs to lose weight. And that just for thyroid people, we have to have it. Because a lot of people forget that most conversion of, inactive T4 to active T3, that happens in our liver. Like 60% happens there. If we don't have glucose, meaning no carbohydrates, we lose a lot of conversion. And so that's why I've seen people actually do low carb dieting particularly extended period of time and they're like, whoa, why am I putting weight on all of a sudden? And now actually I have a thyroid issue. I didn't have that before. I'm like, yeah, because you're losing a lot of conversion. So I'm like, you got to have carbohydrates. Now, be strategic with it, don't eat carbohydrates by themselves, things like that. But we still need those. We have to have. And again, everyone's different with the level, how much they should have and things like that. But don't go zero carbs and low
Mhm.
carb for like extended period of time. That just doesn't work for thyroid people. The other thing that I think is a huge one that a lot of people don't even consider as part of weight loss is stress.
Mhm.
So, when we're under immense amount, and stress can be, physical, mental, emotional, it can be a lot of different things. But when we have a lot of stress on our body, your body kind of it goes into like safety mode. It does not care about your metabolism. If you are stressed out, it's going to try to help you manage that stress. And so it does not care to make you lose weight. It's going to actually slow your metabolism down. It's going to protect you. It's going to tell your thyroid hormones and your T3, your active thyroid hormone, we don't really need to convert much, or we don't really need to work that much. We need to like protect you and help you get out of the stress right now. So yeah, I mean, stress is a huge one. If you're not managing your stress at all, a lot of people will have a hard time losing weight. It just goes without saying, because again, your body's just, it wants to protect you. It does not care about your metabolism working or about you losing weight, and wants to protect you right now and put you in. I always say you're put in a safety mode. You are in safety mode right now
Mhm.
when you're doing that. Um, Another thing that I wanted to mention that I think that a lot of people also don't really consider when we are thinking about weight loss, if you are putting a ton of toxins on your body, eating a ton of foods that are, kind of toxic foods or chemical, have chemicals or things like that, a lot of processed foods, that actually bogs your liver down. And so your liver, again, what did I mention? 60% of conversions happening there. We can actually have really slow metabolism just because we are just being bombarded with all these toxins, and our livers
Mhm.
bogged down and your body gets inflamed. It doesn't care about you losing weight then. And
Mhm.
again, that just can build up over time. And that's a big one that I talk a lot about, that a lot of people are like, I had no clue that that was could even be a connection to weight loss. I'm like, it's
Oh, yeah.
a
I'm
huge one.
thinking about all the obesogens and,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think about the
Endocrine
frozen food
disruptors.
aisle, all
Mhm.
those weight loss frozen
Oh,
meals in
yeah.
plastic
Ton of
that you're
them.
like microwaving in
Yeah. And not only in plastic, but you're sticking in the microwave, like you said.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's like a toxin bomb right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And again,
that will mess with your weight
yeah,
loss.
yeah,
Those are
yeah.
proven endocrine disrupting chemicals.
100%. And what's on the package? Like
Yeah,
weight loss.
yeah,
Lean, all
yeah.
these lean cuisine and lean, all these lean things. I'm like, yeah, that's not what you want to do. So yeah, that's a big one too. And even just eating a ton, if you're eating a ton of inflammatory foods,
Mhm.
sugar and gluten, even, especially if you have Hashimoto's, things like that. When you're eating a lot of inflammatory type of foods, your metabolism is going to slow down. It's really hard to lose weight when we're just constantly bombarding our body with inflammatory things, especially food too.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are kind of the big ones that I
Okay.
eat a lot of
Yeah.
when we were thinking about like weight loss, especially with thyroid people. I'm like, those are things you have to really consider.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on intermittent fasting.
So I was going to bring that up too, because this is another big one that a lot of people ask me about, like, what are your take on intermittent fasting? Can it help me? So intermittent fasting, I mean, in my opinion, there's a time and place for it. I think it can work for some people. I think for thyroid people, it can be really challenging, simply because again, we're making this window of time of eating small. We have
Mhm.
a long time frame where we have no food coming in, so our blood sugar really dips. And so we don't have as much glucose, your liver doesn't convert as good. So I have seen a lot of people that have thyroid issues that do not do well with intermittent fasting for that reason, because their liver is not getting enough glucose now. And so, yeah, do I think there's a time and place for it? Yeah, I've put people on it maybe a few times, but we had to be strategic, and it was because they were having severe blood sugar handling issues at a certain time.
Mm.
So I had to do it like that. But other than that, yeah, I typically don't recommend it, because I think it can be, for thyroid people, I think can be very, very challenging and very tricky. And it just, again, you lose a lot of conversion
Mm.
by that glucose being so low, for that long. I also recommend, if you do it, to always work with a practitioner when doing it. I think that you need someone guiding you and helping you manage that and navigate that, and see if it even is something that is appropriate for you to do it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've certainly experimented with it.
I
And
did.
what I've found is for me, and I think for a lot of my coaching clients too, it's the intermittent part that's
Yeah.
really important
Yeah.
versus I'm going to skip breakfast every single day because that sounds nice not to have to make breakfast. And a
Yep,
lot of us aren't very hungry in the morning.
yep,
But
yep,
then we got to pay attention to like, how is that working out for us long term?
right.
Are we super hungry in the evening then and like snacking right before bed or like, you know,
Yeah.
raiding the candy
Shove your
stash
face
in the
for the next six
afternoon?
hours. Right,
Right?
right.
Because we're
Yep,
now, and also for women who are still cycling, I think riding that cycle
yep,
too, where there's certain times of the month
right.
where our bodies are more accommodating
Yep,
to maybe skipping a meal here and there. But
yep,
that's kind of what I'm saying is like
yep,
doing it every single day.
right.
I feel like you're kind of just ultimately going to end up in that caloric restriction mode
Yep.
where we can actually see the metabolism go down.
Go down. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I've done, especially for, women, there's times where I'm like, okay, we're going to just pick 2 days a week and you're going to like skip whatever meal or whatever. Let's, test this out or whatever like that. I think is smart too. But I'm like, man, you have to be careful though, because I've seen women come to me that are like, I'm doing intermittent fasting, but man, I'm so hungry that by the time noon comes, from noon till the time I go to bed at 9 o'clock, I'm eating nonstop. I can't stop eating. I'm like eating, eating, eating. I'm like, yeah, you're just completely missing the whole point of it. Don't do that. So, yeah, that's why it's tricky. And I always say, I think that it works better, especially if you already do have, thyroid issues and hormone issues. I'm like, work with a practitioner to do
Yeah.
that. I'm like, it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about, with the breakfast example,
Yep.
maybe I'm gonna have black coffee because that won't like technically break my fast. Now you're putting caffeine into your body without
With
any
no glucose.
protein. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And no
And
protein. Yeah.
so much of like this common thread I hear in everything you're saying and everything, you've taught me over the years
Yeah.
is our bodies need to feel safe to
Yep.
release weight.
Yep.
Our
They
bodies
have to
need to
feel
feel
safe.
safe.
Yep.
And that safety thing is absolutely a factor with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. There's a lot more, research and talk from the experts on this around like the safety theory or the cell danger response, where sometimes hypothyroidism is actually a protective mechanism, like we
Correct.
were not getting enough
Huh?
calories, for
Yep.
example,
Yep. Yep.
and
I've
then
seen,
we're,
I've seen women where they literally they got, like completely got rid of their hypothyroidism when they started eating more and they were, doing all the things and, we worked on, their gut health and all the things and their stress response. And they're
yeah,
not like, how did that even happen? And I'm like, well, because they literally had it on purpose. Their body did that to them to get them to like wake up and get
yeah,
out of this deprivation that they were doing. I'm like, I see that all the time. It's super common.
yeah,
Your body is literally telling you like, this is not working. We need to,
yeah,
we're gonna put you in safety mode and we're gonna protect you and we're gonna figure this out.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So kind of laid out like what what can go wrong, common mistakes. What do you see working really well for thyroid patients?
So, one of the big things is, obviously I mentioned this about, cutting out these inflammatory foods, but like the big thing is eat the perimeter of the grocery store is the big thing I say. Eat mostly from the perimeter of the grocery store. So like these prepackaged, box things, depending on what the ingredients are, they're okay to have once in a while, but I'm like most of your food, the majority of your food should be coming from the perimeter. So, our protein, vegetables, fruit, our starches, things like that, our healthy fats. That's where we want, most of them to come from. I'm like, if you're doing that, I mean, you pretty much are like guaranteed that you're not eating a ton of inflammatory foods then when you're doing, things like that. So I'm like, that's a really big one. Also, not only that, but like if you are eating something that, has a label on it, read the label. I'm like, because man, they can sneak these little ingredients in that I'm like, that has like a ton of sugar in it. It says gluten free, so you grabbed it and it has nothing but sugar in it.
Hmm.
So I'm like, really pay attention to these labels because, especially when you're like on I say weight loss journey, a lot of times you are paying a little bit more attention to what you're eating and things like that. And then you're grabbing things because it says gluten free or it says low fat or whatever. I'm like, let's look at the ingredients still. That's a big one. And then of course, stop cutting calories. Stop cutting calories and counting calories. I'm like, if you're gonna look at things, I always say just making sure you're looking at your macros. You know, it's eye-opening. I have a lot of people when I make them track initially because I'm like, just do it for a couple days. I want you to see it. And I'm lucky if some of them are even eating 70 calories or 70 grams of protein a day. I'm
Mhm.
like, we need to see that you're eating enough protein. We need to see, are you eating enough carbohydrates? Sometimes fat is way, way too high and they're barely eating any protein at all. So I'm like, that's what I would look at. Don't keep looking at calories because you can have, so here's an example. This person could be having, 1,500 calories. This person right here could be having 1,500 calories. This person could be getting 1,500 calories in, but 1,000 of them are coming from Snickers bars. This
Right.
person could be getting in all theirs in really good healthy foods. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
like, let's not count calories because the calories are not all the same. I'm like, so you have to really pay attention to food and pay attention to your macros. And eat carbohydrates. Don't skip on those carbohydrates. Make sure you're eating those. Always eat carbohydrates with like protein and fat, or fat. Don't eat carbohydrates alone. We're talking carbs that are like higher glycemic, so like fruits, starches like potatoes and sweet potatoes, grains if you tolerate them, like rice and quinoa. But eat them. I'm like, make sure you're eating them. The amount you need is again person dependent, but your liver really needs those. So make sure we're eating those for good glucose for hormone conversion. Um, I cannot emphasize stress management enough. I mean, it's so big.
It really
This is
is.
why I have a big questionnaire when I work with my clients on stress, because a lot of them are like, I'm not stressed out. I have a no stress. I'm totally fine. And then I have them do the questionnaire and they're like, oh my gosh, I actually am stressed out. I had no idea that I was. I'm like, just, be honest with yourself. Because again, it could be different types of stressors on the body. But I'm like, if there is any type of stressor, I'm like, do the best that you can. Obviously, there's some things that are out of our control. I've
Mhm.
been there where it's just completely out of our control. Then you manage it the way that you can. But, self-care is huge here. I have seen people where they actually finally started losing weight because they did so much self-care and managed their stress, and the weight just started coming off. Because again, their body was like, awesome. You're actually, protecting yourself and doing some stuff, stuff for your body to like chill the stress response out. They actually started losing weight just by managing their stress and doing some self-care and things like that because now their body felt like it was safe to lose the weight finally.
Mhm.
So I'm like, that's a really big one. And sleep obviously is a huge one. If you are not getting your sleep, it's very, very hard to lose weight when you are burning the candle at both ends and not getting your sleep. I'm
Mhm.
like, your body, again, it does not care about you losing weight when it is like, you're not really giving me enough rest and you're not giving me enough sleep. Again, it's not going to prioritize weight loss and metabolism. Metabolism is going to really be slowed down because it's not getting the energy that it needs from the rest. It has to have rest and you have to like rejuvenate it every single day. So I'm like, you can't, your body's going to protect you and it's not going to help you lose weight if you're not, prioritizing sleep. The other thing too that I wanted to mention is, I always love, and me, I always talk about this strength training. I'm like doing some type of weight resistance, some type of strength training for your workout. Not everyone likes to do that, but I'm like, at least get it in a couple days a week. I'm like, it's huge. It revs your metabolism. It's safe for your thyroid. It's safe for your hormones. I'm like, it's incredible. And I like I mean, I strength train now. I do like 5 to 6 days a week, but I mean, it's been many years of me getting to that.
Mhm.
Um, but when I first started doing strength training, I was like, wow, this is actually really good for me. I don't feel exhausted. I was, working within reason and not doing it too long and not killing myself. And I felt really good doing it. And so that's why essentially I just kept building up, doing more days of it. But it's so good for thyroid people. It just is amazing for them. So I always say get some strength training. And even if it's 2 days a week, it's just really less taxing on your thyroid, and your body, and you usually can bounce back and recover really easily. Start thinking about the products you're using. Start swapping out. Make some swaps of if you're using shampoo that has a ton of toxins, or your body care, your skin care, the candles you're burning. Start making some swaps. And my suggestion always with that, just like pick an area. Do that for a little bit. If you try to swap everything out on one day, it's like overwhelming and it's costly.
Yeah.
I'm like, just pick an area and start thinking about, okay, and is the food containers that I'm getting, all these plastic food containers, maybe start thinking about, should I swap those out? So just start, thinking about all those things because again, all these toxins bombarding our body, your metabolism in your liver is just going to be like, no, not, and I'm not having it.
Mm.
So start thinking about like how can I make some swaps with that. The other one that I also wanted to mention too, make sure that the foods that you are eating, you're balancing your meals. If you were eating like 60 grams of carbs at a meal and like 10 grams of protein, your blood sugar is probably going to spike and then dip, and you're going to have this cortisol response and all these other things. So metabolism kind of gets messed up. So make sure meals are balanced. Carb, protein, fat, make sure we have a really healthy balance of those meals. Getting some fiber in, that's another really big one that I think a lot of people get scared of eating. I don't know where that came from. But I have a lot of clients that I've worked with that are like, yeah, fiber is just going to make me bloat. And I'm like, well, it can if you're eating too much of it. But I'm like, we got to have a little bit of it. I'm like, don't be scared of that. And so I have to get a little strategic with them sometimes. But I'm like, get your carb, protein, fats in and make sure, meals are balanced because that's a huge one for metabolism too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the fiber thing, I absolutely
Uh-huh.
hear that. I think it speaks to how many people in the thyroid community are dealing sometimes with pretty major gut health issues,
Yeah.
and adding a lot of fiber on top of that. Sometimes I feel like the healing in the gut
Yeah.
has to happen first.
First.
With
Yeah.
fiber,
That's
it's
what I
like
found.
you don't go from 0 to 60.
No, and that's the other thing too,
You've got
that
to work
a
your
lot
way
of
in.
people are like, oh, how many grams should I eat today? 25? Great. I'm going to get 25 in today. But I've been eating five. I'm like, oh, don't do that. And like, you gotta like, it's no different than like I say reverse dieting, like increasing your calories. It's the same thing with fiber. I'm like, you have to go slow or you will feel like completely bloated and gassy and all the things.
Yeah.
I'm like, especially if you already do have gut issues. I'm like, take your time with it. But I'm like, let's
Yeah.
not do zero fiber. I'm like, we need to have something.
Yeah.
Especially for these people that like have constipation or diarrhea. I'm like, we got to find that fine balance of
Yes.
fiber. But I'm like, don't be scared of it, but don't go gangbusters with it
Yeah,
either. So
right.
yeah, like 0 to 60, like you said, don't do that.
Okay, I'm curious too about maybe along similar lines. You talked about the macros, right? And balancing your meals and yes, yes, yes. And we talked about no naked carbs, right?
Yeah.
You want to always be having protein, fat, fiber can also help kind of blunt that like massive blood sugar spike that naked carbs can cause,
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious what you've seen around how much variation do you find people have in terms of that balance of macros?
Mhm.
Where some people, like I'm talking about like metabolic
Yeah.
typing, right? Where some people are mixed types, some people
Yeah.
do better with higher protein and
Higher.
fat,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people do better with lower fat. Do you find that that's true and
Yeah.
that there
Yeah.
is really a lot of variation?
Totally, 100%. Absolutely. I see this all the time where I'm like, yeah, there's definitely, and that's why like I was saying earlier, how much your macro should look like. There's really no cookie cutter. Everyone's very, very
Mhm.
different. Really kind of metabolic type really is huge here. I love looking at it's called HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis test, because we can kind of see what your metabolism is doing and get a little bit more idea as well as what your macros should look like. But oh yeah, the variation of macros, even between thyroid people can still be different with, because we have to take in consideration what your metabolism is doing, fast or slow, or, are you kind of this mixed type, which I see a lot of. I see mixed a
Mhm.
lot, probably more common than anything. Um, and then, of course, like, where are we starting at? If you've been only eating 900 calories, like I was doing, we're not going to go gangbusters and, put you at whatever. If your macros end up being, caloric intake of 1500, I'm like, you're going to put weight on. So
Mhm.
it's like we have to consider that too, as far as like where your starting point is, what your activity level is, all that. But oh yeah, there can be a massive variation in, carb, protein, fat, which, from this person next to this person. Yeah, there can be a big, big variation of that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting. Thanks for weighing in on that.
Yep.
Hey, Thyroid Thrivers, Jenny here. I just want to pop in with a real quick message. If you're listening to today's show and thinking, I want to get started with this, I want to feel better, I need support, and that is my missing piece, I've got good news for you. I have created the group health coaching membership for thyroid thrivers just like you. It's called the Thrivers Club, and you can learn more about it at hypothyroidchef.com/membership. When you become a Thrivers Club member, you get access to me, your personal on-demand health and cooking coach, a full recipe library of thyroid-friendly recipes, including gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, and AIP recipes. You get access to an amazing, positive, healing-focused community of other thyroid thrivers who get it and who know what it's like to face the unique challenges that we face. You also get access to loads of expert resources created not just by me, but by other thyroid experts, doctors, nutritionists, all kinds of brilliant minds in the thyroid space. And one of the best parts about the Thrivers Club, and really where the results happen for people, is that you get access as a member to our monthly wellness challenges. And those wellness challenges just provide extra inspiration and motivation to make those small but mighty steps that get us where we want to be on our healing journey. Let's find out what happens when you have that support that you need. I'd love to welcome you to the Thrivers Club. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to hypothyroidchef.com/membership. So check out the Thrivers Club today. Okay, back to the show. Okay, here's another one for you. Diet versus exercise. How much would you say is exercise? How much is diet? Are they even Steven or?
So that's a good question because I've been asked this before. Um, I think sort of it can depend on the person. Okay. I do think that there is something to be said for that because again, it depends on what their starting point is. If someone's really been exercising a ton and it's almost too much, I'm going to dial them back and I might dial them back, like way dial them back to where the food part is actually going to be a bigger thing for them.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and then we're going to keep, cut movement back. So depending on what we see on testing and things like that, I think it can be, very, pretty person dependent. Outside of that, I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's probably close to 50-50. I think that the tough part is, particularly with people who have, thyroid issues, a lot of times they're so tired that like getting a workout in, it's daunting. It's so hard for them. So then I'm like, okay, then I just need you to go for a walk. Literally, just do some type of movement or do some stretching, whatever that is, even yoga. Just go for a walk, whatever that is. Let's get that in. And if their diet has not been really good, then I am going to probably be like, you know what? 70% of this right now is going to be your diet. We're just going to leave 30% of this for, your
Mhm.
movement. So like I said, it kind of depends on the person, but
Yeah, that makes sense. Where are they starting at,
they
right?
starting at, what their starting point is. Because if someone's, never worked out at all, I'm probably not going to emphasize like, okay, we're going to go throw you right into like working out a ton. We're going to go like really slow with that. Let's just more emphasize your food and we're going to gradually maybe increase you to like get close to like 50-50.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it really kind of depends on the person. But like without saying that, yeah, I think that the movement piece, I think a lot of people really emphasize the food part so much and the movement piece, it's either one extreme or the other. So they're either like way too much, it's like 90% movement, and they're killing themselves, or they're none at all. And I think that's where we need to have more of an even balance of that, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that does.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, one thing that you specialize in is testing. How can our lab tests or the type of labs you do
Mhm.
help us uncover maybe some root cause
Yeah.
reasons behind why we might be having weight loss resistance?
Yeah, that test that I just mentioned, it's called HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis. This is probably the biggest one that I do for it. It is a metabolism test. So it tells us like what your minerals are doing and how they're affecting what your metabolism is doing. So is your metabolism fast or slow? I mean, 95% of the tests I get back are slow, slow metabolism. And so when we see that, we can get a really good idea, like, you know what? It won't matter how much you diet and exercise and take your thyroid meds. If your metabolism is shut down, we have to fix that first. The other things fall into play then. So yeah, it's a really big one. outside of that testing too, I like to look at gut health, and we look at, I do urine testing for our hormones and things like that. If someone, for example, has really bad estrogen dominance or their cortisol is through the roof, again, your body's like, don't care about helping you lose weight right now. We have these things going on, especially like estrogen dominance. That's a really big one for
Mm,
women. I mean, you're retaining water a lot of times. So it's really hard to lose weight. And gut health, even. I mean, if your gut health's a train wreck, let's say you have leaky gut or you have a pathogen, some of that conversion I mentioned from T4 to T3, 20% happens in the gut. And so if we have poor gut health, I mean, 20% of conversion, and you could lose all of it. That's a lot to lose. And gut health is just so huge for weight loss. I feel like that's one area that I think gets ignored a lot. But if you have an inflamed gut or you have a pathogen or you have leaky gut is super common with thyroid issues. I'm like, it's hard to lose weight when you're dealing with all that stuff.
mm,
It's really, really hard. And again, think about our gut. It's where we absorb our vitamins, minerals, nutrients. It's where our thyroid, if you're taking thyroid medication, it goes through there. If that's a train wreck in your gut, that those things are going to be challenging, and it's going to be hard to lose weight then. So
mm,
yeah, I like, looking at bigger picture things, versus just looking at, our blood testing, because I feel like we can get such a better idea as to, okay, this is why you're like not able to lose weight or why your weight just keeps going up. Because we have, XYZ things going on here and your metabolism's just shut down then.
absolutely. Yeah. And we've done the hair tissue mineral analysis together a couple times. It's so interesting. So you like
Yeah.
snip a little bit of hair out of the back, nobody will notice, and you mail that in, and because the hair really shows, and this is looking at minerals, it's a
Yeah.
mineral analysis. So
Yeah.
this is, I mean, I can't think of another test that can really show that many different
That
minerals,
extent.
not at one point in time, but over,
3 month average.
several weeks,
Yeah.
three
Which is
months.
why I do it on that. Because on blood, so blood's a snapshot in time. So like if you were stressed out that morning and you got your blood checked, your minerals could be off just from that. If you ate
Mhm.
something that had really high magnesium, like your minerals are just, when you do it on blood, it's just a snapshot. So I like to look at it on hair because it's a 3 month average, but it's crazy because it checks a lot. It even checks heavy metals. But looking at all those minerals, because remember, your minerals are your little spark plugs. They drive everything. And if they are off, they can mess all this, every system we can see on the hair test. That's what's really cool.
Mhm.
And that little one ratio on there, that thyroid ratio that's on there is huge, because that's the big one that I see a lot, where a lot of women have thyroid hormone resistance. So the thyroid hormones aren't going in the cells.
Mhm.
And it's huge because your thyroid panel could look normal and you're like, why can't I lose weight? My metabolism is shut down. They keep telling me my thyroid's fine. And I'm like, well, but maybe your thyroid hormones aren't going inside your cells.
Mhm.
So that's a really big one that I see for a lot of people when they can't lose weight with or without thyroid disease. But let's say you do have thyroid disease too, and you're like, the weight's not coming up. I'm like, you could have a combo. You have typical hypothyroidism, and then you have a cell issue where the cells just are not letting thyroid hormone go in. It won't matter how much you diet, exercise, and take thyroid meds, then you have to get those thyroid hormones to go in the cells. And
Mhm.
that's a huge, huge one that we see on that test.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the listeners, that's commonly referred to as cellular hypothyroidism, where
Yep.
just like you said, your labs can look normal, but you're
Yeah.
still having a lot of hypothyroid symptoms.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
metabolism is slower, like everything's going to be slower. You might still be shedding hair, dealing with
Yeah.
fatigue, dealing with brain fog, and on and on.
Yeah.
I feel like too, so many people are just undertreated
100%. I think
with
so
their
many people,
thyroid
I think
medication,
so many people are
or
undertreated.
they're not converting it
Yeah.
and the doctors aren't looking at that because
Well,
they're
they're
only
not looking at T3.
TSH. Yeah, they're
They're
not
looking at
even
they're
testing.
looking at yeah. And so here's that dilemma is these people are taking, thyroid medication, typically it's T4. So it's like levothyroxine or Synthroid. They're getting their thyroid labs checked again. Their TSH goes down because they're taking thyroid medication. That's normal. And their T4 looks normal because they're taking it. And they're like, I don't feel good. I still can't lose weight, or my hair's falling out, or I'm exhausted. And I'm like, well, what about your T3? So if you don't, the T3 is your active thyroid hormone. So if you don't see that and you're only looking at TSH and T4, I'm like, you could, maybe your T3 is actually really low. Maybe you're not converting. You can't see that then. If you don't check it, obviously. But yeah, that's why it's like, I think that a lot of people are 100% are undertreated. because for that reason, because the typical lab to look at is TSH and T4. That's typically what they're going to look
Mhm.
at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's so much emphasis, I think there's a lot of drive for many people that where they want to get off their thyroid meds, they want to
Yeah.
be on less meds, and
Yeah.
I completely understand where that's coming from. And I think we can kind of do ourselves a disservice with that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. I
My
think so.
thinking is like get on the meds that you need so that you can do the work you need to do
Right. Right.
all the things you talked about. These are the
Right.
same things we work on in the Thrivers Club, Thyroid 30,
Right.
what I call the 8 daily rituals
Yeah.
of thyroid healthy living, right? We need to be making the whole food meals. We need to
Right.
be moving our bodies. We need to be getting sleep. We need to be nurturing our gut health and avoiding toxins and find our support system and all of that. That is going to take some mental clarity. It's going to
Right.
take some energy. How are you going to do all
How are you
that?
going to do that? Right. If you're not. And so this is, and I'm glad you brought this up too, because so at one point my thyroid lab stood looking completely normal. And that was when I was my heaviest weight. My hair was like to here. My hair was just falling out in clumps. I barely had any hair. I was wearing hats all the time because I had like clumps missing.
Wow.
I was exhausted. I had brain fog so bad I just couldn't even function at all. I felt absolutely terrible. And my thyroid lab was looking normal because I was taking thyroid medication. And they're like, I don't know what to tell you. Are you taking it? Are you taking it right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I feel absolutely terrible. So, once I got everything, obviously got into functional medicine, got everything normalized, I still take thyroid medication. I have to take thyroid medication, but I have no symptoms now. And I'm like, I don't mind taking it when it's working. What I don't want to do is take it and I felt like dirt. But I'm
Yeah.
like, now that I have the right med, I have the right dose, I've, healed my gut, I've done all the work and I don't really have symptoms anymore at all. I'm like, that I'm okay with taking it then. What I don't recommend is like keep taking it, feel like dirt, keep taking it, feel like dirt. I'm like, you need to do some more digging then and find out why don't I feel like dirt. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking thyroid medication. And I think a lot of people get scared of that or almost feel like, oh, I literally have two women right now who are like, I kind of felt weak that I had to take thyroid meds. And I'm like, no, it's not about that.
Yeah.
I'm like that your body has to have that. If you just don't make that much thyroid hormone. You're gonna have to have it. But let's fix all the things so that you actually use it and it's doing something for you. What's the worst feeling is when you're taking it and it's doing nothing, which is what was happening with me.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, no, I still take thyroid medication. I don't take near the amount that I used to. I'm like, but it's doing something now. I don't have symptoms. I'm like, it's actually working. Before it wasn't doing a thing for me. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'd love to give the listeners one just like small actionable step that they could take away from today's show. So, what's like maybe a simple shift that you've seen make a really big difference for most thyroid thrivers who are wanting to lose weight and maybe also struggling to lose weight a little bit?
I mean, honestly, the big one that I always say is like, it's around food. I'm like, first of all, be honest. I'm like, be honest with yourself. Like, am I, because a lot of people I think feel like they're like, well, I eat pretty healthy. And then when they write it down, they're like, oh, maybe I'm not eating as good as I thought I was, or maybe I'm skipping meals too often, or maybe I'm not even remotely eating enough. I'm like, so my always thing is log your food. Do a couple days worth of writing your food down. Be honest, write down every single thing, even your water that you're drinking, write down everything that you're doing. I'm like, because it's very eye-opening when you start doing that, that's when you people end up seeing, oh my gosh, I am not eating near the amount of food that I should be eating, or I'm not even eating 1,000 calories, or wow, I eat sugar every single day. I'm eating candy all the time, and I didn't never even thought about that. I'm eating it in the afternoons because I'm starving, and maybe it's because I didn't eat a good lunch or whatever. So I'm like, write your food down, log, write it down for a few days. I'm like, wherever it is, if it's on an app, if it's, write it on paper. I'm like, but it's very eye-opening, and it's a huge step because it really will make you be honest with yourself. And it'll help you at least start going, okay, I need to do a better job with this. I need to like
Mhm.
tweak what things you need to tweak. Maybe it is increase your calories. Maybe it is eat more protein. Maybe it is not skipping meals, whatever that looks like. I'm like, but it's big. It's a huge one.
Absolutely. I love that idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I have had that experience too where I've
Yeah.
started tracking my food.
Eye-opening, isn't it? Me too.
Yeah. And I've
Like,
done this
oh
a few
man.
times and I'm telling you every single time I'm like
Yep.
I need to eat
Yep.
more.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not eating
I
enough.
always learn from it. And that's actually when I realized how bad that I was eating 900 calories a day. It was, I was like, when I started logging it, I'm like, oh my, this is
Yeah.
not safe. I should not be doing this. How am I even
Yeah.
functioning like this? Which I wasn't hardly. So yeah, it's very eye-opening.
Yeah. Well, it's an easy and relatable pitfall for a
Very,
lot of us thyroid
yep,
thrivers because
very.
we have some metabolic challenges. We want to maintain a healthy weight, the weight that we feel where we feel comfortable, where we
Right.
feel sexy, where we
Yep.
like, the way we fit into our clothes and we're comfortable that way, and it's just so easy to fall into that trap of
Yeah.
under eating, maybe over exercising on top of it, and then we can kind of undermine our own efforts.
Right.
So I
Right.
really appreciate your insights and the perspective that you bring to this topic. And I know you've just helped so many people in your work and
I love
certainly helped the listeners today. So thank you so much,
it.
Angela.
Thank you
I'd
for
love for
having me.
you to share with us where the listeners can hear more or, sorry, learn more about you and connect with you so they can
Yeah.
work with
Yeah,
you.
so I'm on Instagram under I'm it's Angela Brown Coach on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, same thing on Facebook. And then my website is angelabrown.org. I have a blog on there with a bunch of articles and some free resources and things like that. Lots of freebies on there too. So they can always get a lot of information from there as well.
Awesome. And you have a special free gift for the listeners today about reading your thyroid blood test.
Yeah.
Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that?
It's called The Secret to Reading Your Thyroid Blood Test. And I created this literally because I feel like a lot of people think that TSH is the only thyroid marker or T4. And so it shows you the list of like what you should get checked, but I give you an explanation. And the big reason for that is so that when you go to your doctor, when you just give them a list, they're not going to do it usually, but explain to them why you want it. That helps them a lot. So I have a list of their why you should be getting it checked. And then some other markers besides the thyroid ones to help you with, with metabolism stuff. And then the reference ranges, which I think are huge because the lab reference ranges are so big and it puts you normal when it's really not normal. So I gave you the more functional, optimal reference ranges on there. So
Well, that sounds like a fabulous resource. I'll be sure and put the links for all of that in the show notes where people can find you and where they can get that freebie from you. Thank you again, Angela, for being here. Do you have any final words of encouragement for the listeners on their healing journey today?
I mean, one thing that I always want to remind people as well is that especially when you're dealing with thyroid and hormone stuff, you have to think about it like it's not there. Sometimes it's a up and down. Okay. It's usually not just a straight up, always going to be, healing. It's an up and down journey. Just keep that in mind. If going into that, knowing that some days it might just not be the best and we're going to go down a little bit, but we're going to go back up. Just know it's going to go back up. Sometimes it's that roller coaster, but it's okay that it's a roller coaster. Sometimes it's okay to do that because it just helps you dig in a little bit harder then too.
I love that. That's perfect. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Angela.
for
It's
having
great
me.
to chat with you. Always fun to connect, and I just really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for spending this time with me and tuning into today's episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast. If you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. Your support makes this show possible. For more thyroid healthy food and lifestyle inspiration, check out my free library of thyroid-friendly recipes and lifestyle content at hypothyroidchef.com and the Hypothyroid Chef YouTube channel. As we wrap it up, head to the show notes for information and links to everything we talked about today, along with the link to my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide download. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. See you next time.